a lung threat called COPD. This has become way common than what you and I could imagine. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder is making its patients very, very weak and frail. It's making breathing almost impossible. Our top story today is in collaboration with the India Today magazine. Take a look. For years, air pollution makes headlines, but only when we cross the hazardous levels, which is in peak winter months. The problem is a year-long one, and the repercussions are now being felt. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, is becoming more prevalent than ever in India. This is a lung disease, and the cases have beyond multiplied in the last 3 decades.
For a person to get obstruction of the airways, it takes decades. And to document that obstruction, one has to do a spirometry, that is, one blows into a machine, and machine gives the parameter that this much obstruction has occurred. So it takes almost years for that stage to come. So therefore, that's the reason that COPD is recognized quite late.
So what really causes COPD? Regular exposure to throat irritants causes inflammation and obstruction in the airways. When the obstruction gets severe, breathing becomes difficult. This condition is known as COPD. While smoking has traditionally been the most common cause of COPD, data shows that 48% of COPD deaths were due to non-smoking causes in India. Air pollution is the second most common cause.
Increasingly, the people who have never smoked seem to be developing COPD. The person is at higher risk of getting COPD if he or she migrates to New Delhi. Now, this speaks volume about the national capital, where air pollution levels are constantly rising.
There is no cure in medical science for COPD. Once the COPD occurs, you can control it, treat it, manage it. So therefore, it is important to understand this disease, which was 6th leading cause of death some time back. Now it has become 3rd leading cause of death. So it's a very serious, concerning problem. It not only reduces the quantity of life in terms of lifespan, but what is called as age-adjusted life years are also reduced. It has immense impact on economy as also output of an individual.
Several studies show that toxic air greatly increases the risk of developing COPD. Here's what the symptoms look like. Breathlessness is a major symptom. Doctors say there are less obvious signs as well. Weakness is a sign. Weakness in doing activities you were used to is a sign. Pain in the limbs, excess mucus production, chest congestion, frequent chest infections, and chronic persistent cough. Like in the case of 55-year-old Sunil Gupta, who was diagnosed with this. A smoker for years, his symptoms were classic symptoms of COPD.
So when he came to me for the first time, he had appearance of a person who was short of breath. His face was a little red, and he was walking with, even in walking from gate to the chair, he was feeling short of breath. Okay, he was pursing his lips a little bit, and his chest looked large anterior posteriorly. He seems to have a little less muscle in his arm. All these things were visible on a inspection only.
काफ़ी टाइम खांसी रही, तो जब 1-1.5 महीने खांसी रही तो फिर थोड़ा सा सांस फूलना भी शुरू हो गया, और जैसे मौसम चेंज होता था तो फिर भी 1-1.5 महीना खांसी वगैरह, कफ वगैरह। तो इस तरह से धूल से भी मुझे एलर्जी शुरू हो गई थी। पहले तो डॉक्टर्स ने मुझे मेडिसिन्स पे ही चेक करके मेडिसिन्स पे ही रखा। 15 दिन बाद फिर प्रॉब्लम्स जब कफ एंड कोल्ड ख़त्म नहीं हुआ, खांसी वगैरह, तो उन्होंने फिर मेरा PFT कराया। मुझे आइडिया था एक्चुअल में, फिर मैंने शुरुआत में तो मेरी स्मोकिंग छूटी ही नहीं। अभी मैंने 2-3 साल पहले ये छोड़ दी है। बाकी इसी की वजह से था मुझे इसको।
The biggest challenge in dealing with patients suffering from this infection is timely diagnosis.
When you start getting little bit of shortness of breath while walking, your usual activities, supposedly you are walking 5 kilometers and then you start feeling breathless on walking 5 kilometers, don't ignore it. See your doctor, diagnose this, specifically people who are smoker or who have exposure to some fumes, smoke, the people who work in buses, or somebody who is exposed to diesel. Some goldsmiths, they have direct exposure to that, to melt the gold, they are directly exposed to smoke, or even the ladies in the house who are exposed to passive smoke.
Medicines are needed to reduce inflammation and mucus in the airways. For treatment, these medicines could be lifelong. Wear masks and air purifiers when air pollution levels worsen. Avoid outdoor exercise is what doctors say. Psychological counseling is often recommended to reduce stress. So what is the government of India doing about this? Aware of the citizenry gasping for breath, the union government is pumping in funds worth almost 6,900 crore to the National Clean Air Program. NCAP has 131 cities in its purview. The goal is to reduce pollution by 20 to 30% by next year, keeping 2017 as the base year. The task at hand is enormous. A December 2022 analysis shows worrying trends. Delhi is found to be the most polluted since last year, with an annual average PM 2.5 concentration of 99.71 UG M3, which is 2.5 times the safe limit of 40 UG M3 set by the Central Pollution Control Board. Most of the least polluted cities in 2019 also saw air quality levels and rankings dip in 2022. Mumbai was one example. Since November, the city saw 36 days with poor AQI, the highest ever in the past 4 years as per CPCB. It hasn't had a single day of satisfactory air quality since October 2022. As far as managing COPD on a day-to-day basis is concerned, it involves steps that are very similar to COVID. With Sonali Acharji for the India Today magazine and Simranjeet Kaur, Sneha Mordani in Delhi for India Today. According to the Global Burden of Diseases, COPD is the second largest cause of death and disability adjusted years in India. If you look at the increase in the number of cases from the year 1990 to 2019, the increase has been by a whopping 10 million.